Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on the Rule of Eight with Bocchi the Rock. If you don't know what the Rule of Eight is, I talk about it all the time on my channel, but if I have a short series or a short season that is 12 to 14 episodes, it never fails. The eighth episode is always a good one. Eight's my lucky number. I can only think of one series in which the rule of eight has not applied, which was Attack on Titan. But the release of those series and how they structured the seasons, I'm going to blame it on that. Rather than the actual rule of eight being wrong. But no, the rule of eight has not let me down. And we had quite the preparation going into this episode last week, where we had Bocchi with her friends Kita as well as Najika were visiting her house. There was all those shenanigans, but they were like, "Oh, we've got the concert coming up. What could go wrong?" And then there's a typhoon that's coming through, so that's what could go wrong. Something before we get into the comments, I pulled this episode up, and on the streaming service they tell when this episode was published on there. It was November of 2022. Is this series that old? Have I been taking crazy pills? I feel like Will Ferrell off of Zoolander, where I've been taking crazy pills, because I could have swore that this series was came out in 2024. I could have swore this series was not that old, that it's only been out for like a year, and I'm just riding the curtails of the series ending. No, this series has been out a couple of years, and I've been under a rock. Like Bocchi, apparently. What? I'm still floored. I can't believe this series has been out for 3 years and y'all are still waiting on the second season. What? So, mind blown, apparently. I'm assuming we're on episode 8. If it came out November 2022, then the series probably ended in early 2023. So it's technically only been about 2 years you've been waiting so far for the second season. But I could have swore this series ended last year, not 2 years ago, or almost 3 years ago. So that's weird. So that's just my little before comment thing of being like, huh. So I do have comments going into this episode from episodes 5 and 6 that I want to talk about. Doug Glafores 1 said for episode 5, a cool detail about Najika this episode is in the vending machine scene. She bought Bocchi a cola because in the previous episode, episode 4, when the girls were in town taking pictures, Bocchi chose to buy herself a can of cola. So Najika figured out that that was one of Bocchi's comfort drinks. Girl, if the band life doesn't work out for you, Najika, you need to get a job in counseling or in healthcare or in taking care of people, because girl is attentive. And she pays so much attention to details, and it's super cool. I love Najika. She is the friend that we all need, right? Somebody in the comments has said Najika is that friend we should all have. I 100% agree. Also with episode 5, Kaguya 6900 says, by the way, Seika is pronounced Seika rather than Saika, and it means star song, which is probably where the club Starry comes from. So yeah, I am notorious, as if you've been on my channel for a while, you probably know that I'm notorious for mispronunciation. And once my brain gets hardwired with saying something a certain way, it just says it a certain way. And it takes a long time to deprogram the brain from doing that. So we're only halfway through the series. So I'll just start saying Seika. I almost said Saika again, so Seika. We'll just do it. But y'all have to bear with me, because pronunciation, I am hyper aware that it's not my forte. I do what I can. So, Seika. Shimayama, as well as Jesus Sablon, 5557, had to talk about the guitar that our magenta bassist in episode 6 has. So, Shimayama on the Discord, we're on Patreon for episode 6, says, Shuden Doji X is the nickname she named her guitar. The Chinese character for it is Alcoholic Child, but it's also considered to be a yokai. So that would make sense. They also noted that her bass guitar is about 100,000 yen, which is 700 USD. So 700 for a guitar. Honestly, $700 for a guitar sounds like a lot, but a basic guitar, like nothing crazy, no bells and whistles, no brand name, a basic legit guitar is about $200, because I got one when I was in high school for Christmas, and I hadn't asked for it. I just got it, and I was like, I felt bad because my grandparents had got it for me. I was like, why did you spend this money? I didn't even want a guitar. I have no musical inclination whatsoever. And they were like, here's a guitar. So I tried to play it for a while, but I think it's still at my parents' house, but I have no talent with it. And I was like, but I felt bad that they'd paid like $200 at the time for it, because it seemed like a lot of money for a gift that like your grandchild didn't even ask for. But if that's the run-of-the-mill basic, like just generic dollar brand guitar is $200, then $700 for like a decent guitar is, I think that's okay. That's still a lot, but for a professional guitar, I don't think that that's anything crazy. And then Jesus Sablon 5557 said, for the Super Ultra Shuten Doji X bass that Magenta Bassist has, the name actually is one she gave to the bass. I'm not an expert on Japanese yokai lore, but what I remember is that Shuten Doji is a notable yokai who is often characterized as having an irresistible thirst for sake, which is too appropriate as a name for her to choose. That is well worded, and yeah, it makes sense of why she would choose that name for her bass. I'm like, okay, I get it now. That seems to make sense. So yeah, thank you all for the information on that. Bloink for episode 6 says the bassist character is really fun, and she even has a spin-off manga that goes into more depth of her character. I'm glad that's all they said, because I don't want any spoilers or anything about her. We're only on episode 8. We have so many episodes left to go. I'm sure she'll make an appearance again, especially if she comes to the concert. So I don't want to know too much about her character. I don't think I will read the spin-off manga anytime soon, but it is good to know. And that's there in the future if we need it. But they're making a Bocchi season 2. So I'm like, we'll see what happens there. But that is good to know if anybody's interested. And then Kelvin for episode 6 says, at the very start of the episode, we get another one of Bocchi's mini songs in the form of, quote, guitar wa tomodachi. We also get Bocchi playing an unnamed song with the drunk bassist, but I won't be listing that song since, well, it's unnamed. And I was like, that makes so much sense that that's an unnamed song for their relationship, for their dynamic in that episode. That makes so much sense. I was like, that's really funny. And then finally, if my dog stops being grumbly, hey, Huck, be nice. Episode 6, H-Banana7 says, the nameless bassist is awesome, but I'm deeply concerned about her substance abuse. You and me both. But as an HDA-er, she seems HDA coded. Oh my gosh. As an ADHDer, she seems ADHD coded. Extreme ups and downs, reckless, free-spirited, loose boundaries, etc. I do not have ADHD, but I have a friend that does as an adult, and that checks out. That checks out from talking with her and her describing being an adult with ADHD. That checks out. One of my favorite things about her, though, it's endearing, even though she's like, is that she'll get on a train where not a literal train, but just a train of thought where she just texts my friend and I like constantly for hours and hours on end. And then we don't hear from her for a month because she lives pretty far away, and she'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. And we're like, yeah, no, that's all right. It's like, it is totally cool. We get it. She's also a mom. So like she has a lot of other things on her plate than just talking and texting us. So, but yeah, I really appreciate all of those comments. Thank you all so much. It's the rule of 8. It's actually funny because the typhoon had started in episode 7, and outside right now, you can't tell, but it's been storming all morning. So I'm like, okay, all right, bring that ambiance, get that mood set. So we'll just have to see what we get, won't we? But yeah. So I'm excited. I'm trying to get this shirt where it doesn't look wonky on camera, but that's not going to happen. So we're going to get started here. Thank you all so much for the kind words and comments. I'm so excited for this episode. But we are going to start episode 8 of Bocchi the Rock. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see you all on the other side. This series almost made me cry. Rule of 8. Rule of 8. It does not let us down. I have never been let down by the rule of 8, and this episode was no exception. I almost cried. I was like, Bocchi the Rock, you're cutting to the core of me right in this episode, aren't you? If you cried during that scene with Najika and Bocchi at the end, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. You have those tears. You have your tears because that was really really good. What I liked about this episode a lot was around the time we were at the halfway point of the episode, I looked up and I was like, "Oh, we're going to have a lot more than just the band and just the performance," which I was totally down for because I like band episodes. Again, I think of Given. I think of Given a lot. I like Given, and that series does it a little bit differently than this one does. That series builds up to the concert in an episode like this, and then the episode is the concert itself, which for that series, you have to go watch Given, but for that series, the concert and the way that they do it is perfectly fit to what that character needs in that moment. So it all makes sense, and I'm like, okay, that all works. Here, it's like they're just starting out as the band, but even though part of the episode was them getting their footing as a band and going through the motions, and we saw that from the first number to this one, which I really like the way they handled it. We'll talk about it when we get to it. A lot of it is still the character building with Bocchi alongside her team, her band members. And that part I thought was very well handled. But man, when you see how nasty it is outside and you see PA-san like coming in out of the rain and they have all the little rain charms. You can tell which ones are Bocchi's by the way her expressions are wrote on the rain charms, which is hilarious. Also, you can see like, I'm sure Rio's is the one with the face, and then Kita's is the super smiley one, and Najika. Like, you can tell by their expressions which ones are which, right? You can just tell. I know what that feels like when you have an event and you want people to come to it and then the weather makes it just the worst. I know what that feels like, and it's such a terrible feeling, and you're just sitting there going like, well, people will hopefully still show up regardless. It's such a sad time whenever stuff gets rained out or the weather doesn't help for it. On the other hand, though, I think that maybe it was a blessing in disguise, because since there were only so few people, it's a double-edged sword, and we'll talk about it. I like that PA-san is all about the ghosts. She has a very Wednesday Addams kind of goth vibe to her, where I could see her liking it. She also gives me like Perona from One Piece, so I feel like she would be totally into the rain charms, especially as ghostly as they are. But yeah, and then Seika. Now with Seika, her character makes so much more sense. Her character and Najika's character and the way their personalities bounce makes so much more sense. And we'll talk about it as we go. But Seika, being the realist that she is, she's basically had to become a mom as a teenager. And the fact of her quitting the band because she has a little sister to take care of. I thought Seika has a lot of self-restraint to not to go into that, which obviously it's a private family matter, so why would she? And it's in front of all of Najika's friends, so why would she? But it says a lot for her character that she quit the band life because being a musician is a gamble. It's a gamble. It is not a secure job because you're wholly dependent on people liking you and liking your music. It's kind of like being a content creator in a way. There's not really job security. You're just banking on the fact that your personality and your talents are going to keep people interested and engaged, and thus earning you some form of income. But there's a lack of control as far as that goes, because if you're in like a 9-to-5 job, as long as you in a 9-to-5 job, I know there's so many other factors, and I'm sure people would correct me in the comments about whatever, but for the sake of this argument, in a 9-to-5 job, or a job that is paid on salary, or a job that has security, the main factors are you. Can you do your job? Can you show up on time? Can you do X, Y, and Z efficiently? Can you coordinate with your coworkers? Can you do the work that needs to be done? And it's all dependent upon yourself. And as long as you can do that, you'll probably keep that job. I mean, there's external factors like budget cuts and things and administration and stuff, all that gets in there. But for the most part, I would say the majority of jobs that are like salary 9-to-5, as long as you do your work, you will keep that job. And in today's day and age, the better you do your job, the more security you typically have. So, because they'll become reliant upon you. So, being a musician or an artist is very different from that, because it's not just, can you do this job effectively? It's, are you going to be supported by an outside source? And that outside source is bringing you an income, and it's not stable. It's not guaranteed. It's not always going to be there. It depends on whether they still appreciate and want what you are putting out there. In a 9-to-5 job, what you are putting out there is already wanted and already needed. So there is no question of whether they're going to pick it up or not. They got you because they already know the answer to that question. Whereas with a band, there's not that security. And all of this is to say that Seika being so business oriented is a result of her realism in the reality she lives in, that I don't have any parents. I don't have a stable income to fall back on. I have a little sister that needs support and needs to be raised. And so I can't be in a profession where there's not guaranteed income for the two of us, because the stress of that is insane. So I don't blame her for being like, I'm going to start this bar, this venue, and go. And the thing about it is, I'm glad that Hiyori, we finally get her name. I'm glad we got her. I'm glad we got her name so soon, because I was afraid they're going to make us wait like the whole season to find out. So I'm glad we got it in this episode. Lucky number 8. But when Hiyori's like, why'd you quit the band? And why'd you do all that? Hiyori's a little tone deaf too. You can clearly see it's just her and Najika. But maybe they don't know about the parent situation. That's the thing. They don't know that the mom died when she was little. The dad ran off, which is a common thing that can happen. So Seika was left with her sister, and they didn't have any support. So whenever Hiyori is I'm amazed at the restraint that Seika had to not get mad at Hiyori in that moment. But then again, she knows Hiyori doesn't know the full story. So that lends it too. But the fact that she was mature enough to say, I'm going to give up my dream of being a band member to raise my sister and support her so that she can live her dream. My respect for Seika just exploded in this episode, because she basically is like, I'm going to sacrifice my dream so you can do yours. It's like a George Bailey and his brother Harry in It's a Wonderful Life, which that movie's been out since the 40s. So sorry for spoilers. But in that series, George literally, like, their dad gets sick and falls ill, and they're like, who's going to run the bank? And George like wanted to go out and have these aspirations, but then like he decides to stay behind as the elder sibling to take care of the family business, and he lets his younger brother go out and live his dream. It all works out for them in the end, but it's that same notion of sacrificing for your family, your own self-interests, to better everyone around you, even at the cost of yourself. And that's what Seika does. And it's just, that got me. I was like, okay, I get her character a lot more. But yeah, there's always the risk of, when they have venues like this, that when you have bad weather or something, they're just not going to risk it and show up, which is always, we go to like cattle sales and stuff, my family does, and our funds from that sale are dependent upon people coming and buying the cows that we bring, which sounds a lot different than this, but it's still like, if we had bad weather one year, we had a bunch of snow where we were at. It was like early March, and a snowstorm came, and we were like, nobody's going to show up because of the snow. And we were like, nobody's going to show up, so nobody's going to buy the cows, and then we're not going to make as much money for it, and we spent all this money to get here. So I definitely understand the panic and the sadness that is associated with the weather issue at the beginning of this episode. What I was trying to say before I got off sidetracked with Seika is that I think it is kind of a blessing in disguise, because it's sort of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, when there's so few people in the audience and some of them start leaving, it's very noticeable, and you're just like, and we'll talk about that with the concert. But on the other hand, if it had been a bigger audience, it could have led to some people like yelling something like, you suck, or something like that, because it's like a mob mentality, or a bunch of people could have left, or there could have been like a bigger grumble or something. It could have been a lot worse, is what I'm saying. So they actually maybe got lucky that the weather helped them for their first band performance, especially with it being like as rocky as that first song supposedly was. I thought it sounded great, but they were convincing us that it was not. And then they're like, real bands get screwed over by life all the time. They need to learn to make it through any situation, which that is projecting. In the episode when it was happening during the reaction, I was like, oh, Seika is projecting. And now it's like, oh no, she's really projecting because that's been her life. She's had to make those same sacrifices. So yeah, tickets go on sale at 5. And Kita notes that her friends can't come. And with Bocchi, it makes sense that her parents have to stay home and watch her sister. That makes sense. And they're like, well, the audience isn't going to be as much as it is. Najika being like, it is what it is. We'll take it in stride. Her and Seika having vastly different reactions and views is so fascinating to me. It makes sense. Najika is the younger sibling that Seika has tried to like help her get everything she needs to be successful in life. But also Seika was older when her mom died and older when the dad left. And so she probably had to mature a lot faster. Whereas Najika has been kind of like, and the thing about it is Najika has been left to possibly have a brighter, more rose-colored outlook on life, but also it's a coping mechanism. It's a way for her to cope. Seika is just such a realist. She doesn't even bother with the veneer. She's just like, it's tsundere realism. She's like, here's how it is. Here's how life goes. It's not easy. Get your kid gloves off and do what you got to do. Najika, her coping mechanism seems to be to put on this persona of everything's fine. Let's just go with the flow. It'll be all right. But that's just her way of getting through a tough time because of the trauma that she's dealt with. So I appreciate the show giving us a pair of sisters who have both been through trauma but handle it in very different ways. Because it's very true. My brother and I are completely different people. We handle stress in completely different ways. Even though we are biologically with the same mom and dad. We have such different reactions and personalities. And that part's pretty realistic as well. So Najika always stays so cheerful no matter what happens. Well, that's her way of dealing with it. And so, yeah, I like Rio. When Rio falls on her and is like, no, I'm so sleepy. She says it's the low pressure system. I did feel that because I have the same reaction, not necessarily being sleepy, but whenever there's like a low pressure, high pressure and the pressure systems get really crazy, I like get a headache and then I want to sleep to like sleep off the headache. So I was feeling where Najika was coming from. She's like, even during the concert I was helping, she worked so hard to cheer me up when I was scared. I love this Sailor Moon transformation where she's like searching for a day. I'm gonna bring the hype. I love it. It's literally the Sailor Moon background. They just tweaked it a little bit so they couldn't be copywritten. But yeah, it's the same. I love she has the glasses and the mustache. That's like her go-to persona of bringing the hype. I love it. It's so fun. But yeah, then Hiyori shows up. She's like, heck yeah. And she's like, oh, these two know each other. She was my junior in college. So literally, Seika is her kohai. is her senpai. And she's the kohai. I'm like, okay. I love that Hiyori just does not. She gets in everybody's personal space. And then she's like, oh, I bet you're having an after party, right? Have you picked up an izakaya yet? What's an izakaya? I want to know. Izakaya. Have you picked it yet? Oh, it's a drinking place. Oh, she's like, have you picked where we're having the after party yet? Because she immediately wants to go drink more. I love Hiyori. Hiyori's a great character. Her substance abuse scares me to no end. I'm like, girl, you need some help because she is an alcoholic that is not functioning the best. So, but they're all like, well, it's none of our business. But at the same time, I'm like, you probably need to help her. She seems like she's maybe needs some assistance. Yeah. How did you become even more of a pain in the ass? She's as annoying as a college student who just learned about drinking parties. Yeah. So then the two friends come. I love that the people that Bocchi saw just a few days ago that saw her play are the ones that immediately wanted to come and see her perform. And that makes a lot of sense because like Kita's friends, they haven't seen her perform. They just know about it. So it's different, the motivation to go somewhere when you know what you're going to get. So if you've been to a band performance before, you've been to a concert, you know what it's like, you know the atmosphere, you know the talent, you are much more incentivized to brave the weather and go. Whereas if you were just going on a whim or just to support, you're like, I can't make it because of the storm and all this. Whereas these three, they know Bocchi's going to put on a good performance, so they want to go support her. And they're her fans, right? I love that Bocchi has actual fans, and it makes her go Super Saiyan. That part was really great. I love that. And of course, the best part is not only the guitar and the microphone like going up to heaven with her, which congrats, made me think of Neon Genesis Evangelion. But I love that all of them around them are like, are you Bocchi? Is this the same Bocchi? What is happening? What is this? So I loved that. I thought that was wonderful. It is the wrong person. I want to comment that everyone's outfits are adorable. I like most of them are all in skirts. Although I will say I gave Najika a hard time about the tan and black together because I didn't think it worked. This looks more like the plaid Burberry print pants with the suspenders and the little bow that she's incorporated as the necktie. That's super cute. I like that a lot. I think this one actually looks really, really sweet. I like it. So I'm like, okay, we'll make it work. Poor Rio, though. She's all the low pressure has got her all worked up. And then I almost wondered if Bocchi was going to perform in the mango box. They're like, she's evolved. Now she has armholes where she can play the guitar over the box. Girl. I almost wish that she would, and then she'd slowly evolve to take the box off. But how someone needs to cosplay Bocchi in the cardboard box with the armholes and the guitar. I don't have the guitar, so that's not going to happen. I'm not going to go out and buy a Gibson. So someone that has one needs to walk around with the mango box or write mangoes on it and then walk around playing the guitar and be Bocchi. Like that would actually honestly be a super, other than the guitar, which is the cost. You just need a black shirt and a cardboard box and you would be set, put some eye holes in it. But yeah, so I'm sure they'll all listen to us. Now, this one band that's in the back that had like the lolly, like the black lace lolly look. She kind of looked like Dark Lady from Sailor Moon. And then the one right next to her that had like the newsboy hat I love the coordination of their outfits. Their outfit coordination is amazing. They look very cohesive with also being individualistic, but they're also rude as hell. They're like, don't know, don't care. I'm like, y'all are rude bitches. My thing was like them just saying they don't care about the other band and immediately like discrediting them. You know, if you don't know a band, you're like, oh, let's see what they got. But to immediately be like, I bet they suck. I'm like, there's no reason for that. And so they try to make sure it's a concert. We're going to do what we do. And they're all getting ready. And then, yeah, there's about 10 people hanging out. Kita is so funny because she's super kind and super polite and very cheerful and like peppy. And Najika points out, she's like, we're supposed to be a rock band. You're supposed to have like a little hard edge and grit to it. Honestly, if that were the case, you'd almost want Rio to introduce the band. But Rio's so nonchalant that she'd probably be like, we're going to play. Cool. I feel like Rio would fit very well into the Scott Pilgrim universe. Rio just has that vibe where I'm like, you would be perfect in Scott Pilgrim. You would fit right in. Everybody else is too peppy or upbeat. And Bocchi's saying, I want my mango box. I want to disappear altogether. Bless her heart. Seika, of course, is very like the body language she gives of like, I want to make sure this works out for them. Because she wants Najika to be successful, right? She wants Najika to be successful. But Seika also has kind of a mom mentality where she wants her sister to learn a lesson that not everything is going to be peachy keen in the band world. You're going to find failure. You're going to find mess ups. But at the same time, she wants her sister to learn the realities of this world, but she also wants her sister to be successful. So you can just tell throughout the episode, Seika writing that line. And oh my God, Hiyori is standing there. Hiyori reminds me so much of, I'm watching Word of Honor, which is on Mondays on my channel, the same time I'm doing this. So tomorrow you should go check it out. But I'm watching Word of Honor, and there is a character on Word of Honor that he has the exact same type of mentality as Hiyori. He has kind of this wizened older figure who gives off the vibe of not giving a care. They are not a non-functioning alcoholic like Hiyori, but they give off the same vibe. So I was like, okay, they give off that same kind of laissez-faire vibe, which is fun. So they start out and it just, everything's not going totally to par. And Kita's making mistakes. Rio's kind of off, and the weather can kind of be attributed to that. Najika's nervous, so she's not all in the beat, and Bocchi notices all of this. And it doesn't help that everyone's just standing around on their phones. That would be set and not even looking at the band. That's such a demoralizing moment of just like, I can kind of understand that because if you've ever given a presentation in public before, you have that happen. Like part of my job requires me to go to high schools and give out awards and scholarships to like high school recipients each year. And I can tell you that I have to put on the most energetic, powerful, confident persona when I go give these awards, because if there is an ounce, and if you are a teacher, you know this, if you have an ounce of nervousness, if you have an ounce of hesitation, you will lose your crowd just like that. Whether it's a classroom or I've been at award ceremonies where I wasn't feeling 100% my game and I was just kind of giving it 80%. And I remember I would look out into the crowd and I would see some parents just being on their phone being like, let's get this over with. She's got this many awards. Let's go. And it is a demoralizing moment where you're like, the crowd is not into me. They are not listening. They don't care. It is such a demoralizing moment. But then like this last month I went to a school and there was a big crowd there. And I was like, before I got up to speak, I was like, no, I am not going to have them looking at their phone, just being like, let's get these over with. I was like, I'm going to be the most energetic person in the room and the best presenter in the room. And I don't care what these other presenters think. That's their problem. And so I went up there and just gave it my all. And then one of my mother's friends, she was like, oh, she did a good job presenting at that award ceremony. I was like, okay, good, because I was sweating bullets the whole time. But yeah, just even little moments like that, like just seeing someone not giving you attention or recognizing the hard work you've put in is such a feeling. And you could just instantly feel the creeping just dread of this moment. And I kind of like it because I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to give away anything in Given. You should go watch Given. Given's amazing. But to me in that series, I liked Bocchi for having that moment of, is this gonna work or not? Or is it gonna be a complete failure? And I'm glad the series here gives that realism of, okay, which it kind of does in Given, but I like it a little bit better here in Bocchi in the sense of, oh, everybody's messing up. What are we going to do? It just felt, because that would be realistic. Your very first performance in front of an audience like this, right? And the one lady that just walks away to the bathroom or whatever, it's so demoralizing and sad. And Bocchi's like, what am I going to do? And you could tell her fans are like, oh, this isn't Bocchi like we normally hear. Now, Hiyori's giving nothing away. Hiyori is smiling like a drunk fool. Hell, she could be off in another universe right now and we wouldn't know. But the fans, the two girls, are kind of like, man, everything seems kind of off. And Bocchi's like, I am not going to let this mood stick around. She's like, no, the next song, she's like, no, we just wrote this. She's like, I want that same feeling for those fans. I don't want to let them down. I refuse to let it stay this way. I was saying the last several episodes that Najika was the glue holding the band together, but the title, roll credits, Bocchi the Rock. Bocchi is the rock. She is the foundation of this band. She was not the first person asked to be in the band. It was Rio and Najika before, and technically Bocchi was the last member to join officially. But she's the foundation. Bocchi is the heart and the vibe. And she gets them motivated through her talent. And I feel like when she started to do the solo, that could have been the moment that Najika noticed, you're Guitar Hero. I can't believe she figured out she's Guitar Hero. And they talked about it at the end of this episode. I was like, ah! Now, is Najika going to tell Rio that she's Guitar Hero? Does Rio already know? I don't know. Kita, I don't think knows. They've not talked about Kita having that knowledge, but oh, I can't believe they went into that this episode. That was such a great surprise, right? And then they played the song. It was pretty good. They played one more after that. Everybody was paying attention and clapping for them. I just love it. I love just how they did the band scene and Bocchi playing and Seika's like, all right. Hiyori's expression doesn't change at all. I think that Hiyori and Seika both see the potential in Bocchi, that she could be what leads their band to giving. And Seika's going to be invested in that because Seika wants Najika to be successful and have what she wants and have what maybe Seika wasn't allowed to have because of their circumstance. So I feel like she's going to support Bocchi because she wants the best for her sister. And I like that they each have their own motivations. Bocchi wants to be a part of something and wants it to be popular. So she's kind of like serving her own needs, but she also wants to grow and have friends in this community. Najika wants to live out the dream that her sister couldn't have because of their family circumstance. And her sister instilled this love of bands and music in her. So there's that. Rio just wants freedom and to play from her heart what kind of music she enjoys. And then Kita's a social butterfly. Kita's here for the ride. Kita's here for the social experience and the fun and the love and all of that good stuff. So I love it. So they go to Kalmise where they have drinks. Actually, it looks like Seika and Hiyori are the only ones with beer. The rest of them have like barley tea and stuff. I don't know what Pie-san is drinking. Maybe it's a cocktail or maybe it's just juice. Who knows? But who is this woman, if I may ask? Genius bassist and unparalleled bass lover, Kikuri Hiroi. Hiroi, not Hiyori. Hiroi. Okay, so is it Kikuri Hiroi? Do you say that right? I want to know this. Like, how do we... Tell me how to say these things. Hiroi. How do we say that?
Hiroi.
Hiroi. Okay, I've been saying it wrong the whole time. Not Hiyori. Hiroi. Okay, so Hiroi. What does Hiroi mean? Wide. Wide. I want to know. Maybe that's Google Translate. Hiroi name meaning. It means broad, wide, and spacious. Okay. Well, I mean, that kind of fits her because Hiroi has like a kind of an open view about everything. She's just like, whatever works, we'll just make it go. We'll just be chill and go with the flow. And it just works for her. Obviously, Seika has a much different circumstance than Hiroi because she has another life to care for. Hiroi can drink and go do whatever because it's just her. She's a loner. She doesn't have to worry about anybody else, right? Kikuri Hiroi. I'm gonna have to Roy instead of Hiyori. Every comment's gonna be like, you said her name wrong until 30 minutes into the discussion. So yeah, I love that Kita's like, I don't understand. But Rio being a fan of Hiroi is amazing. I love, and of course Rio's like, you spray booze, you spit booze on the audience, you forget your songs. I treasure my memory of you stepping on my face. For Rio, Hiroi is talented. For sure. Our bassist is a talented woman. But I love that Rio loves her for the vibe. She's like, your concerts are an experience. You get spit on, you forget the songs, you step on people's faces. And there are musicians out there like that are talented, but their whole deal is creating an experience with their concerts. Like, there are some musicians that I've heard of that I've had fans go to their performances where they're just like, you're known for doing all of these crazy things. It's not so much about the music at that point, but about the experience of the concert itself. So interesting to know that about Hiroi. But she forgets her bass guitar at a drinking party. What do you do? And she's like, oh, I've been to a lot of your concerts. I love that Rio's instantly like, yes, I love her. And so she's like, thank you, Shinjuku. I love you. She's like, mother truckers. I love Kita's like, this is too much. The Kita aura cannot handle Hiroi. It's too much of a vibe. And I love that Nijika's like, you don't have to imitate that. She's like, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. It's totally fine. But yeah, so the concert turned out well in the end. Seika buys them all. It's rare for Seika to buy them all food, but then again, they're not buying drinks, so maybe she's like, I'll save some money in the end. She's like, just keep it up and work hard for your next concert, but also make your ticket quota. And then poor Bocchi. Bocchi's just an ashen husk. It was too much. It's just, they're like, I love that the guitar and the microphone, they like comfort her in that moment. They're like, you should order some food. Also, when that guitar goes across the screen, the guitar is drunk. The guitar has the strong lemon, whatever that booze is, and the sake juice boxes, which is hilarious. So yeah. So Seika notices that Kita is really good with social media, and I like that she's like, what are you adding this for? Why do you do this? And honestly, Kita's explanation of why you post on social media is kind of exactly it. It's the idea of sharing people a piece of what you're doing. It's like being able to share in a public space, like your life in a little tiny way. And if you're enjoying it, like spreading that positivity. She definitely is a positivity content creator, Kita is. But I'm going to be curious if Seika tries to utilize that in the future, especially for their band. But even Seika cannot resist the Kita aura. And Nishika's like, use that Kita power of yours to purge my sister's twisted spirit. And she's like, oh, well, the manager's really nice, though. And then Sega's just like, I can't. It's too much positivity. And she starts to fade and crumble away like Bocchi did last episode. So yeah, Bocchi's like, here's what I'm going to get. Which that order. She hands it over to Kita. I love Kita, the way they do her character. I know people like this in real life, where you go out to eat with them and they look at the menu and they're like, oh, this cool thing and this cool thing. And you're like, I didn't even think that was on the menu. But yeah, she instantly is like, oh yeah, I'm going to have avocado and cream cheese pinchos. And Bocchi's like, what? And she's like, the Spanish omelet with hollandaise sauce. I don't like hollandaise, so I would be like, no, thank you. She's fluent in gibberish. I bet she casually walks into Starbucks, yeah, to make the most complicated order like it was nothing. Yeah, I have a friend that I've gone to get coffee for a bunch of us at work sometimes, and one of my coworkers is like, oh yeah, I just want this. I'm like, so at this point, I just have her write it down, and when I get to the place, I'm like, this is what she wants. Because it's like nothing easy, but I honestly could make a speech warm-up out of, I'll have a short, puri puri pepero, papi papipo, perope pacina. So puri puri pepero, papi papipo, perope pacina. That is a tongue twister. That is puri puri pepero, papi papepo, perope pacino. That is insane. I am writing that down, making a warm up out of it because that's insane. I love that so much. So then she's like, I'll make a trendy choice too. I'll have the Machu Picchu ruins, the Mississippi River, Grand Canyon, San Diego hash. I'll have the fries. Love it. I love that Mississippi River, Grand Canyon, and San Diego are really nowhere near each other in the US. So that's just random things. Just funny. It's like, how old are you again? Like, who are you? I'm trying to question how old Rio is. Rio is an old soul. I do like the fries they have there. She's like, this is kind of fun. I wonder if they'll be even more fun when I grow up and can drink. I don't like Bocchi thinking about all this drinking. Bocchi, you should not be getting inspiration from Hiroi because she is not. Also, Hiroi sounds like LaCroix. So I'm just taking all I had to be like, Hiroi, LaCroix. But my favorite part of this entire dinner scene, besides the Seika and Nijika backstory we get later on, is the fact that the art style, and tone shift of the conversation happening 5 feet away from them is so funny. So funny. Where the guys these guys are just having a conversation where the one guy getting drunk is talking about his wife leaving him and about how it's because he's busy every day. And the other guy's like, man, you don't deserve that. And he's being like a best bro over here. And it's like a totally different animation style and tone change. And like, come on. Although his friend gives awful advice, like, just keep drinking more. And I'm like, no, that's not good. And so Bocchi, of course, is like, is life just an unrelenting hell? Bocchi's problem is if you give adulthood even an inch with negativity, it will overrun it, because there are a lot of parts of being an adult that are not fun. There's a lot of parts. I have a lot of students saying that they don't want to do a job because it has bad parts to it. I'm like, every job has bad parts to it. Like, even the jobs that you like, even the jobs you love, has negativity within it. It's inevitable. It's part of the human experience. You're gonna run into that. There's gonna be parts of your job you have to do that you don't like. But I love Najika and them saying, and then finally Hiroi says, you just need to chill and let life happen. If you only focus on the negativity, that's all you'll ever think about. So you have to be able, and that's a big step for Bocchi, because Bocchi's go-to is to assume the worst and then kind of retreat from it. That's been her go-to since episode 1. And that's such a common thing for lots of people to do. So for Hiroi to say, you just need to chill and enjoy life, that's a big step. That's a big step for her. So yeah, I don't blame her for being like, what do you mean enjoy life and do this? Because when you think about it, she's like, if I don't make this band thing work, I'm going to have to get a proper career too. And then I love the game of life being used to talk about, like, graduate high school, move on to college, fail to make a debut, get a job. And I hate that she views herself so poorly, saying she's not smart enough to get into college, so she'd have to get a sales job. And then seeing the sales, I like that we have Ogawa. Whoever Ogawa is has like the red ribbon. They got first place. And then Koizumi, Hasegawa, Ozaki. I'm sure there's an inside joke with these names. And then Goto, like, getting the bare minimum, which, look, Goto would be awful in sales. That's not the job she needs to have. But I'm like, girl, there's so many other jobs out there. Even if the band thing doesn't work out, you don't have to go into sales. There's other jobs out there. No. When she goes to try to sell the product and it fails so miserably, and then transferred to sales department, failed at door-to-door sales, stress quit and become a shut-in. Like, no. And then we go back to, it all spirals back to her drinking into oblivion, which was there in episode 6. I'm like, no. But I like that Hiroi is like, it's okay. You're going to be all right. You stressing out is what everybody does, but you'll get through it just fine. It'll all work out, right? But I love the game of life board being incorporated in that. Yeah. My thing is, I feel like what Bocchi doesn't realize in this moment is that she is slowly growing and maturing as the series goes on. So whether she realizes it or not, even if the band doesn't work out, she's gaining skills to be able to do something besides the band as an adult. Like, she grew so much in just from episode 1 to episode 6, where she was performing in front of people and convincing people to buy tickets. Like, that was in just a short amount of time. So there's definitely hope that as she grows up, she's going to gain skills from being in a band that's going to translate into something else. I tell students that join the speech team, I'm like, yeah, you're not going to be able to do speech competitively your whole life. No, you do it for 2, maybe 4 years at the most, and at the college level. But you're going to gain these skills that you can apply to other aspects of your life that will help you maybe get a job in other realms, which is great. So, like, one of our former students, she was doing acting, but acting's a very hard career to get into. It's very limited, but she knows how to act and she knows how to perform, and she got a job at, like, a national monument doing tours. And her interview process was, they're like, well, you need to memorize this 5-minute monologue. And she was like, okay, I've done that on the regular for speech. Did it, and they didn't even interview her. They were just like, oh, we're hiring you because you're great. So she didn't even have to try. She just used those skills and immediately got in. So it's like, I feel like Bocchi is selling herself short on what skills she could gain from this experience that she could use later on. But we're way too into it. She said she didn't want to become a NEET. So it's NEET. It stands for not in employment, education, or training. And basically it says the NEET and hikikomori and hikikomori and psychological spectra. I'm looking on the national, looking basically on the National Library of Medicine for this. It says, since entering the 21st century, an increasing population of young Japanese have become socially and culturally marginalized. Specifically, many of them are emerging as NEETs, not in employment, education, or training. The Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare define NEET as people who are not employed, not in school, not a homemaker, and not seeking a job. And hikikomori as those who are neither in work nor school, do not have social interactions, and are socially withdrawn for more than 6 months. So apparently, it's estimated by the Cabinet of Japanese government in 2010. Now, this is 2010, so like 15 years ago, that there were about 700,000 hikikomori. Also, a recent epidemiological study confirmed a life prevalence rate of about 1.2%, or a little over 1.5 million individuals in the Japanese population who are or have been hikikomori, with half of them not having a comorbid DSM diagnosis. So, possible triggers for hikikomori might include school absenteeism, which Bocchi didn't want to go to school, or job insecurity. In fact, both the numbers of hikikomori and school refusers have been increasing for obvious reasons, as it's become increasingly difficult to reintegrate into society the longer one remains socially withdrawn. Consequently, it's not unusual to find a hikikomori who has been withdrawn for over a decade. And honestly, this sounds crazy on the offset, but I feel like all of us that went through the COVID pandemic kind of understand that it's really hard to get back into society once you've been isolated for so long. It's really difficult. It's been difficult for me to be like, to go out into public and go to parties and go to things when you've been socially withdrawn, because you just got used to that mentality that it wasn't safe. And then trying to reintegrate, it's been like a years long process, honestly. And some people still aren't there yet. And it is very psychological, right? So I can totally understand that. There's also a one shot. It's been made into an animated feature called that's called Look Back. It's by the creator of Chainsaw Man. It is so good. But one of the characters in that is kind of like a shut-in from high school. They're like kind of an NEET, hikikomori, like in the process of being when the story starts. So yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, there's a whole article about this. So that was interesting. But yeah, she's like, I don't want to end up that way. And then Hiroi is like, that's not going to happen. I like that they sandpapered. They sandpapered Bocchi back into existence. But the one thing I said, JoJo's in the reaction, but honestly, what that reminded me of in the moment was the series Bo. That it reminded me of a character from that series. I was like, from Bo. I was like, oh my god, no, Bocchi, don't do it, girl. That sandpaper version of her is so funny to me. Like, no. And so Ikuyo is Kita's name. And Ikuyo, she said she didn't like it because of what the name meant. That it meant promotional. Ikuyo means let's go. So I like Kita. What does she say? She gets mad about her name because of the pun. She's like, oh, I hid it for so long. You wouldn't understand. You have such a beautiful name that means Song of the Stars, right? She's like, oh, look at her face. She's like, my name. She's like, Kita, Ikuyo, I'm here. Let's go. I mean, she has the most positive name. It's like just brimming with positivity. I love that Rio, whenever she has a broken moment and she's just crouched there beside Rio's like, I kind of like you like this. That kind of makes me want to ship them a little bit, because I do like the dynamic of Rio being like, I like when I get under your skin. Like some couples are like that. They like to like rib each other. So I like that Rio sort of appreciates Kita not being this perfect ball of perfection and sunshine the entire time. So I like that Hiroi goes over to Bocchi and says, you were mumbling about supporting yourself, but let me give you some advice as your senpai. If you put the weight of success on your shoulders all the time, you'll just make yourself miserable. Which seemed kind of as a little bit of a dig towards Seika, being like, wondering why she quit the band and started the bar Starry. But Seika obviously has a lot more reasons than just putting the weight of success on her. There's a lot more to it than that. She says it's important to enjoy the process. Yeah, trust the process. We tell students a lot. We're like, trust the process. It seems like it's a lot of work. I always tell students whenever they're practicing speeches, I'm like, you have to go through your ugly Simba stage. You start out making your speech. Then as you're practicing it, you're ugly Simba, you're on the log, you're in your adolescent years. Before you get to full on glorious maned, full grown Simba, you got to go through ugly Simba stage. So you got to trust the process. It's going to get there. It's just going to go through a metamorphosis as it goes. But once it's there, you'll know. And you'll be like, oh, here we go. And they're like, why'd you suddenly quit playing? They were a super popular band. She's like, when you run a club, what's the deal? And she's like, I'm not paying for you. She's like, no. And so that's when Bocchi doesn't get the full-on story in the moment because she goes to find Najika. And then Najika is like, summer break's going to be over soon. I'm just soaking it all in. I love Bocchi's like, I don't want to think about summer break being over. Girl, I hear you. My summer break has just started and I'm already thinking about like, oh, it's only 2 months. It's only 2 months. It's going to go by so fast. So I don't want to think about how, immediate it's all going to be. She's like, back to reality, trees, waters, plants. She's like, I realized something watching you play. You're a guitar hero, aren't you? And I like that Bocchi was a little bit worried at first because she thought that she didn't want Najika to think that she deceived her. She was saying, I was going to tell you all, but, it didn't come up right. And I didn't want to brag on myself and do all that. And she says, I finally figured out you had the same guitar. She's like, I didn't hide it on purpose, but I'm not really a hero. So I wanted to wait to tell you until I fixed the way that I am. And I hate that she said that because I was like, there's nothing, I don't think Bocchi has to fix anything. It's just she grows up. Everybody, it's not getting fixed. It's just you change and evolve, and that's fine. And Bocchi says, I didn't want you to think less of me. She says, it made me the more happy to have you here. That shot of Najika processing what Bocchi tells her is so good because Najika is a character that exudes all of this positivity and caring, but you can tell she thinks really hard about all the stuff around her before she says anything. Kita just exudes positivity and is like sunshine and rainbows. But Najika, there's an element of care and thoughtfulness behind her positivity that you can tell she's really trying to figure out what to say correctly. And that's a hard thing to do, to be able to navigate being on the ball and quick-witted with your positivity while also being considerate. That's hard. It really is. And she's like, I told you I had a dream before, didn't I? My mom died when I was little and my dad was never home. So my sister was my only family and I had her take me to clubs all the time. It all seemed so shining to me. I was her inspiration for quitting her band and starting up the club. I mean, Najika says that, but I think the reality is that Seika knew how much, even if you are in a popular band, like you need some stability, you need something to fall back on, you need a business or some form of lucrative income, and having a venue for bands, you know the ins and out of it because you were in a popular band. So, of course, this would be the way to go about it if using your traits that right? Because if she's in the band, she probably didn't go to college, so she doesn't have that. So she's like, Starry is a place my sister made for me, though I bet she won't admit it. Yeah, you're correct. My dream is to make a band popular enough for me and my sister to make Starry even more famous. So she's like, I want to take my sister's investment in me and make it to where I can give back to her, which is amazing. She's like, but when I actually started my band, I spent a while thinking that it was kind of out of my reach. But every time things were looking at their worst, you're the one who breaks through it for us. Which Bocchi needed to hear that because Bocchi was the one thinking that Najika was the one breaking through for everybody. But Najika thought it was the other way around. And so it's just, I love moments like this where the characters reveal that you think it's someone else lifting you up, but they think the same of you. Like, it made me want to cry. It was so damn good. You were one heck of a hero. When she said you were a heck of a hero for me today, I was like, oh, that made me want to cry. I was like, oh, because she was their guitar hero. And Bocchi doesn't believe herself to be that. She's like, you never actually told me what you were going to do while you were doing the band. I like that Bocchi is honest to her, because with Kita, you know, she kind of makes up the reason, but she's like, I want us to be the best band and become, she's like, she reveals it both. She's like, I want us to be the best band we can because I don't want to let you all down. I also want to be famous so I don't have to go to school. And I don't have to rely on a sales job. It's so sweet. Having you all with us will make our dreams possible. I love that she says there, she's like, of Bocchi Chan's rock, Bocchi the rock. Roll credits. This moment here felt like we didn't have an OP and we got end credits for the ending. This felt like if you had ended the season right here with 8 episodes, that would have been a thing. I'm glad they didn't do that because I want the next 4 episodes. But this definitely felt, since the manga is ongoing, because obviously we're getting a season 2. Since the manga is ongoing at this point, this felt like the end of an act. It felt like Act 1. We set the characters, we set the stage, we set the conflict. We want to be a band. We want to make it work. We've set our first conflict that we've gotten through. Everything for Act 1, like the curtain drops. This was the end of the first act. That was perfect. Roll credits. That's what it felt like, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it so much. Rule of 8, y'all. Rule of 8. Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. I'm glad we didn't have an end credit scene, and the song that was playing was really fun too. So yeah, we still have 4 episodes left. So exciting. I'm assuming that they're going to start the next act, the next arc, with these 4 episodes, and then we'll probably, I don't know if we'll get through the entire arc in this first season, or if they're going to leave us on a cliffhanger, or leave us at a stopping point before season 2. I don't know if they left y'all on a cliffhanger and then have made you wait 3 to 4 years, because Bocchi the Rock supposedly is coming out next year with season 2, which is exciting. Okay. I'm really excited to see where this goes. But I'm also excited to hear your thoughts down below about this episode. I've talked nearly an hour about it, but it was so damn good. I was like, oh, so Rule of 8 hasn't let us down. Not one bit. So anyway, I'm really excited to hear your thoughts down below. I cannot wait for episode 9. I hope you all are excited as well, but we shall see. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Bocchi the Rock. Bye!